Good morning. I'm Terrence Martell. I'm the director of the Weissman Center for International Business here at Baruch. And on behalf of Baruch College and the New York District Export Council, it is my pleasure to welcome all of you to the 14th Annual World Trade Week New York City Awards Ceremony. Before we begin the program, I want to acknowledge the dignitaries that are here today. A warm welcome to Al Mangels, president of Lee Spring Company, our keynote speaker. Thank you, Al. I'd like to recognize Gilbert Kaplan, Undersecretary of Commerce, who honors us with our presence today. I'd like to recognize Bob Lamora, General Manager of Business Development and Industry Relations, representing Sam Ruda, Director of Port Commerce, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, and co-chair of World Trade Week, New York City. Chuck Ludmer, Principal, Chief Practice Development Officer, Cohn Reznick, is our private sector co-chair of World Trade Week. Thank you all. I'd like to recognize our sponsor. Our presenting sponsor is Cohn Reznick. So Cohn gets thanked twice. So thank you, thank you. No more applause. All right, at the silver level, we have World Trade Center Association. At the bronze level, we have the law firm of Meeks, Shepard, Leo, and Pillsbury. Our media sponsors are Coface, Compass, the Journal of Commerce, Trade Post USA, and Webport Global. Let's give them all a round of applause and a big thank you. Without the support of our sponsors, I'd have to pay for all this. World Trade Week, New York City would not be possible. World Trade Week, New York City has been able to grow and thrive over these past 14 years. Today, World Trade Week, New York City supports the largest network of events in the region about international trade. More than 1,000 attendees participated in our events last year. The network of partners continues to grow each year. If you take a look at your program, this is your program. It's actually worth just a second. Inside back cover. These are the groups that participate in the process that brings this event to this great city. You will see an array of city, state, and federal agencies. You will see local chambers of commerce. I am proud to say that many have been part of building World Trade Week over the past 14 years. The number and range of events marketed under this brand also continues to grow and evolve. World Trade Week 2019 events are listed on page 6 and 7. I'm told I got to hold this up. 6 and 7, okay? There's your list of events. You're required to attend at least 3. Thank you. There will be a test. Our 14-year success is evidence of the importance of international trade to the New York region. There are many stories to focus on across the region. This year, we take a special look at advanced manufacturing in New York City. We are pleased to have Al Mangels, president of Lee Springs, here today as our keynote speaker. Looking ahead, obviously, there are still issues to work on. We need to continue to make new investments as a region and as a nation and in infrastructure and human capital to spur innovation. We need to work with other countries to secure a stable, fair, and open trading system. Everyone in this room is committed to free trade. But free trade must be fair trade, or the system built over the last 73 years will collapse. Nurturing the next generation of international business leaders in global trade and logistics is also critical to the future of the region. Therefore, the World Trade Steering Committee, who I will introduce in a second, decided to provide scholarships to deserving students to continue their studies. Before introducing our first speaker this morning, I want to acknowledge the World Trade Week Steering Committee for their work in making this project come to life. This is the highlight of the event. It's the same question each year. Can Martel pronounce these names without flubbing one? So let's pay attention and listen closely. In fairness, I must declare I get a phonetic pronunciation associated with this, but I still managed to blow one or two. So, Ray Bonds. See? First one, Ryan Bonds. U.S. Department of Commerce, U.S. Commercial Service. Peter Bengston, New York Public Library, Science, Industry, and Business Library. Jonathan Huneke, U.S. Counsel for International Business. Barney Lara, New York District Export Council, Webmaster. Carmela Mammoth, U.S. Department of Commerce, U.S. Commercial Service. Nancy Plager, Iowa Foundation, New York District Export Council. Wanda Sample, New York, New Jersey, Foreign Freight Forwarders and Brokers Association, Incorporated. Rado Saraji, the Port Authority of New York, New Jersey. Joseph Schoonmaker, New York District Export Council, and is our chair. Yay, Joe. Lena Sko, Weissman Center for International Business, Baruch College, and chair of the New York City World Trade Week Council. And Kindra Yunus, ITAC. These volunteers work all year to make this event worthy of the great city and port of New York. I would like them all to stand up. Come on, up, up, up. All they get for this effort is my mispronouncing their names and this round of applause. So I'd like a second round of applause. These people work hard. Collectively, over 14 years, they turned this from very insignificant thing into one of the best World Trade Week Association events in the country. So collectively, and on behalf of the great city that started as a port, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's now my pleasure to introduce Charles Lemma. As I said, he's the Chief Practice Development Officer from our principal sponsor, Cohn Reznick. Sir.
Good morning. On behalf of Cohn Reznick, I'm delighted to welcome you as co-chair of World Trade Week. This is our 11th year as sponsors and my 9th as co-chair. And it's a real privilege to co-chair with Sam Ruda, although I know he had a conflict, and the port has done an amazing job in supporting our efforts here. Before I begin my welcome, I just have to acknowledge somebody. I have been coming to this event for, as I said, we've sponsored for 11, I've been here for 9. And there's an individual in this room who every time I'm here touches my heart. And I just would like him to stand up. He happens to be in the back of the room, and he's a young gentleman by the name of Ike Sabbath. Ike is one of the, please. Ike, you want to talk about Mr. International, someone who's tried to network and bring benefits to constituents in New York City and help them around the world. Ike has been dedicated to that for a very long time. I believe his last birthday was, am I able to say?
I'll say it, 97.
He's 97 years old. Happy birthday, Ike. and I hope to see you in many more. You know, World Trade Week New York City is an important program, and it plays a key role in educating and opening doors for business in our region. It addresses the opportunities and challenges of delivering and receiving goods throughout the world. I look forward every May to the kickoff of World Trade Week. You know, this year in particular is of particular importance because this is a very opportune time. You know, change and disruption it makes things really interesting. And with the threat of material changes to trade relationships, we are seeing many companies start to innovate and explore new options. The word disruption is on the front and center of everyone's mind. Our clients, just like us, are threatened by significant efforts of digital transformation, AI, and the political climate. Management teams are challenged to explore new markets, develop ways to enhance the customer experience, and clearly, if you're staying status quo, it's a recipe for a lost year. So World Trade Week and the programs offered throughout the next 4 weeks, but I believe we go another 2, are a great resource for the region and regional businesses. You know, we encourage each of you to support each of those events, and again, we welcome you for being here at our breakfast to kick it off. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. And now Bob Lemura will say a few words.
Good morning. Thank you, Terry. I'll start off the way I did last year, which is welcoming all the newcomers that are here for the very first time. And for those who have been here in years past, welcome back. Again, it's our pleasure, Chuck, to be co-chairs with your firm and your organization. We appreciate the honor to be associated with you and certainly with the kickoff breakfast. Certainly want to thank the New York Export District Council for all of their hard work, the sponsorships, and the organizing committee that's put this all together. Trade is important to all of us in this room today. It's growing, and it's growing rapidly. As Chuck says, if you're standing still today, it's going to fly by, and it's going to fly by rapidly. What you do, every one of us, if you're the president of an organization, if you're the logistics coordinator, if you're the commercial administrator, if you run the finance, we all have a role to play. And it's important that we all embrace that. The Port of New York and New Jersey is on a run like we have never seen before. We have run right now into the 4th consecutive year of record-breaking volumes year over year. For the first time in the history of the port, we've exceeded 7.1 million TEUs. That's a lot of boxes. Our rail freight, which is really the competitive part of what we focus on, which is that discretionary cargo, that cargo that leaves the port region, that leaves the New York metropolitan area, that's going as far west as California, making other locations, Cleveland, Columbus, Detroit, East St. Louis, Kansas City, Louisville, the major cities that we are feeding cargo to on the basis of the cargo that comes off of the ships in the Port of New York and New Jersey. We're reaching on any given point we're reaching any point in time on a daily basis 125 million consumers. That cargo reach keeps growing and expanding. We are not sitting idle at the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. You heard Terry allude to the term investment in infrastructure. We are in the throes of that. Every day, every week, every month, there's another project under review because we need to continue to build, to sharpen, and enhance our infrastructure so that the cargo can move fluidly through the port. That being said, the Port Authority will be releasing in the next month or so a 30-year master plan. That plan will create the roadway for the future. It will help us be guided by the investments that we need to make, how we utilize our land, and how we maintain our responsibility as stewards of the environment within our region and within the port. When you cruise by the various ports today, typically across from Newark Airport, along the Turnpike, in Staten Island and in Brooklyn, you are seeing the largest ships that can come to the United States East Coast. We are now handling vessels in excess of 14,000 TEUs, with the capacity now to reach 16,000 TEU vessels. Part of that capability comes from those investments that we were talking about. As you well know, we've raised the Bayonne Bridge, we've deepened the channel, we've just recently opened the last rail facility of our express rail program here in the port. So we're not sitting idly by. We're taking our responsibility seriously, and that is to ensure that we move commerce forward. And we hope that we share that same responsibility and passion with each of you here in this room today. So as we kick off World Trade Week, we wish you a very strong week. Learn what you can, network who's out here, to the person to your left and to the person to your right. A part of our commercial staff are here today to help with any questions or guidance that we might offer. I can tell you right now, there is no better place to be working in the logistics field than in the Port of New York and New Jersey. Thank you. Have a great week.
Thank you, Bob. It's now my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Al Mengel, who is going to help us understand advanced manufacturing in New York City, sir.
Good morning, everybody. Excuse me one second. I don't want to take up too much time, so I'm setting a timer for myself. Okay, thank you for inviting me today to World Trade Week, my first time out. I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about advanced manufacturing. Before I get started in that subject specifically, a few other pertinent facts I'd like to mention. So who am I? So I am not an economist. I am not a researcher. I am not a statistician. I don't have a political agenda. By trade, I guess I'm a manufacturing engineer. Manufacturing is what I do and what I've been doing. I work for Lee Spring Company. Lee Spring Company is a global manufacturer of springs, wire forms, and other related products. We sell to tens of thousands of companies all over the world, and we sell into virtually every market segment that you can imagine. We started in Brooklyn in 1918, and last year celebrated our 100-year anniversary. And I've been working at Lee Spring Company now myself for about 35 years. The history of Lee Spring Company, I'm not going to go into the whole thing today, but it actually reads like a roadmap of global expansion. As early as 1978, when we established our first global distribution center in Wokingham, England, and through today, we've constantly been expanding both domestically and internationally, especially in the last 50 years. So now Lee Spring has 12 locations in 6 different countries around the world. And as a result of that, we're constantly moving finished goods, raw materials, equipment, people, and all that stuff all around the world. And so a lot of what I might speak about today is rooted in my own personal experience, having been around for about 1/3 of Lee Spring's history and having witnessed many of this firsthand. So world trade and manufacturing, I think I have to try to connect those dots. So this is a little chart that I took out of the World Trade Organization Statistical Review in 2017, and shows a little bit about the growth of world trade, and you've heard some other people today mention how it continues to grow, and it's very important. What's important to note in this particular chart is that the section that's in blue, the dark blue section there, represents the manufactured goods portion of it. The other two colors, basically agricultural goods and mining and mineral products. So manufacturing is the bulk of it. And from this that I found in the statistical review of 2018, you can see that when we're talking about world trade in goods, 70% of it at that time is manufactured goods. So manufacturing is a very big part of world trade, and it's the lion's share of it, actually. I'd also like to mention that United States manufacturing, I don't know what you hear in the newspapers, and a lot of people have misperceptions about that, but manufacturing in the United States is still growing, has never stopped growing. We've had a few little recessions here and there, but we always bounce back from them. And you know, a lot of people are under the impression that manufacturing is not a big deal in the United States, but it actually is still a very big deal. And manufacturing output continues to grow. And so does exports. Manufacturing exports also continue to grow. So if you're under the impression that manufacturing is not thriving inside the United States at this time, although it has its challenges, you wouldn't be correct in that. So now advanced manufacturing. So the term advanced manufacturing is somewhat relative. There have always been advancements in manufacturing, and so what we need to talk about is what's considered advanced manufacturing today. And I think the best way to do that is I'm going to take you kind of through a little brief history of manufacturing, and maybe then you'll be able to see where it has led us to today. So about 200 years ago, it all kind of started with mechanization. Originally there were factories that were powered by water wheels and such, and then there was, of course, the invention of the steam engine. And this is what kicked off the what's considered to be the first industrial revolution, sometimes only referred to as the Industrial Revolution. And a couple of pictures of some old-fashioned manufacturing shops. Around that time, a lot of people stopped working in agriculture and started working in manufacturing instead. And here's a picture of a turn-of-the-century Brooklyn factory. This actually happens to be my great-grandfather's carousel shop that was down in Coney Island on West 8th Street. And he was an immigrant from Germany, and he set up his shop. And you can see that the pictures of his shop kind of show what it looked like around the turn of the century, the last century. I mean, the start of the 20th century, not the 21st century, obviously. Then about 100 years ago, there were a couple of developments. That first of all, there was the proliferation, I always have a hard time saying that word, proliferation of electric power. You can see some gents there pictured sitting inside of a giant electrical motor. But also we see the beginnings of the assembly line. The first assembly line, you could see actually they were pushing the cars by hand, but that was the original concept at Ford Motor Company. And so by 1926, here you can see the Model T Ford assembly line in full swing. And this establishment of mass production is what might be considered the second industrial revolution. It's about 100 years ago. And still a lot of mass production going on today. Now something you're probably all familiar with. About 50 years ago, we start to see computers arrive on the scene. And I can remember when I first started, really not too many computers were involved in my company. In fact, none. It's hard to imagine that in these days, but actually it was all done on paper and pencil and adding machines and slide rules and stuff like that. There really were no computers. But it didn't take long after the development of computers for manufacturing people to start to get involved. And here you can see some early pictures from about 50 years ago of some CNC machine tools and some of early robots. And this then, the introduction of digital technology into the manufacturing sphere This then became the third industrial revolution. So that's about 50 years ago. By 25 years ago, robots and CNC machine tools were everywhere throughout many, many factories in the United States. Today, most factories have a lot of CNC machines. Some have robots. Some still have old time machines. Most companies have a bit of each that I've visited. I've visited many, but it still goes on. And then here you can see how the robots were introduced and melded into a modern assembly line as the technology further took root. So this was a combination of mass production techniques and robotics, for example. The technology of manufacturing is not, one doesn't replace the other, it generally adds on top. So we keep adding layers of more and more technology, more and more tools, basically, is what we use. Then about 20 years ago, something else happened. And then we started to see the Internet of People. And I'm sure all of you are connected by now, but it started to grow very, very rapidly, and that really started about 20, maybe a little longer than 20 years ago now. So that by 10 years ago already, 2009, 25% of the world's population was connected to the internet. And I don't know what the number is today. It's probably double that. I really wouldn't know. But just about everybody, I think, is aware of the internet, and everybody is connected that way, and you're connected to other people throughout the world. So now we are on the onset of what we can call the fourth industrial revolution. And the fourth industrial revolution, we now see something called the Internet of Things. So just as people were connected through the Internet of People, now what's happening is there's developing an Internet of Things, where the machines are being connected to each other, and they talk to each other, and they talk to you. And there's a tremendous amount of data. If you think you can generate a lot of emails and stuff, you have no idea how much data can be generated by manufacturing machinery. Some of our machines can generate records on springs that we produce at the rate of 30 or 40,000 a minute. So then we get big data. We have all this data that everybody's trying to grab a hold of and then to try to analyze. And we start to see the deployment of artificial intelligence to try to actually view and understand what all this data is telling us. So we call this Industry 4.0. That's where the 4.0 comes from, the fourth industrial revolution. We had the first revolution of mechanization, water power, steam power. Then that went on to the second industrial revolution, the introduction of mass production and things of that nature. And then the third industrial revolution, computers and automation. And now the fourth industrial revolution, what's called the introduction of cyber physical systems. We also now see 3D printing, maybe you heard about it, and additive manufacturing, which is different than subtractive manufacturing, where objects are built layer by layer, very small layers, rather than being cut out of a larger piece of material. This could also lead eventually to what's called democratized manufacturing, where you may become a manufacturer, for example, in your own home, and you can have a 3D printer, and instead of having a big giant factory, maybe there, with 500 people, there could be 500 people at home, each with their own 3D printer. These are examples of some 3D printed objects and some 3D printed metal parts. Most of the 3D printers you see will deal with plastics, but there are also metal printers, and some of them are making very complex products that are going aircraft and weapons systems and space systems and stuff like that. We also now start to see the introduction of nanotechnology, which is in the field of advanced materials. We see these little nanocarbon tubes, and what's interesting about them is they're extremely strong, much stronger than steel, and they attract a lot of attention. How small is small? Well, 1 nanometer, you can see that's a lot of zeros in front. It's pretty small. These little nanocarbon tubes can actually pass right through your skin. That's how small they are. So they're very, very tiny. But I thought these pictures were interesting because these are objects that were of nano size that were actually 3D printed. So a combination, again, of two different modern technologies. So what conclusions can we draw from all of this? Well, global trade is driven by the exchange of manufactured goods. That's the biggest part of it. American manufacturing is continuously growing in terms of its output and in terms of its exports. Manufacturing technology has always advanced and will continue to advance at a rapid and accelerating pace for the foreseeable future. Lee Spring Company is a relatively small manufacturing company with humble beginnings here in Brooklyn, but somehow we've managed to establish a global footprint and are trading now all over the world. We have customers all over the world and suppliers all over the world and many other parties of interest that we've connected with throughout the globe. And we've been fortunate in our recent expansions and development to have help. This is a list of some of the people that are available to help small companies like Lee Spring to expand into a global footprint and expand around the world, and they are indispensable and have been extremely helpful to us. And I hope that any others that are interested in becoming a global company can utilize these resources to help them on their way. And that's it. Questions? Any questions from anyone? Yes.
How did you initially start your expansion outside of the U.S. market?
Well, I wasn't there when we did our, that was my timer. Pretty close. I wasn't there when we first started our first one, but what actually happened is there was a movement, especially back in the 80s, for a lot of manufacturing companies to seek low-cost labor. And originally we started spreading out down to the southeastern United States and in domestic regions because our customers went there. A lot of our big customers originally started here, actually in Brooklyn or the New York area. As they moved south or west, so did we. Then they decided to move further into Mexico, so did we. And then they moved into Asia, and so did we. And so we're still doing business with a lot of the same customers that we've had back then. It's just that they've moved out into the world, so have we. And we've had a lot of other good opportunities as a result. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
What do you see as your biggest challenge right now to export sales?
The question is, what do you see as your biggest challenge right now?
That's a good question. So it depends on which market you're looking at. Right now, there are kind of a developed market, like in Europe, which is very similar to the United States. So there, it's more of a direct competition. They are very sophisticated in their manufacturing, as we are inside the United States. And they have, every country in the world has their own kind of made in USA. So they have made in the UK and made in Germany. So there's a lot of nationalism stuff. So in those markets, it's pretty much a direct head-to-head competition. In the emerging markets, such as in China or India or others, we do see a lot of, they have a lot of import tariffs. They have a lot of rules and regulations, rigmarole, I call it. So that also makes it difficult to try to establish in those areas. Anyone else?
I think we're out of time. Thank you very, very much.
Okay, thanks, everyone.
When is the last time we heard about a manufacturing success story in New York City? It's good to hear, and thank you very much, because you must have beaten back a lot of challenges. It's now my distinct pleasure to turn this program over to Nancy Plager, who will pronounce everyone's name correctly.
Thank you. Morning, everyone. So I get to really have the pleasure of introducing all of our wonderful awardees here this morning. Just to give you a bit of background, Our awardees are nominated by our New York District Export Council members, the U.S. Commercial Service, by our sponsors, and by our partners. So from a pool of applicants, our steering committee decides on the awardees for this year, as we do every year. And we actually thought about having drones come in and drop the award in the hands of the awardee, but no, we figured we prefer the human touch. So we're going with that. So it's my pleasure to first introduce our presenter for the Small Business Global Trade Award, Kinda Yunus from ITAC. Kinda, what are you doing that far away?
Good morning, everyone. It is our pleasure to present the Small Business Global Trade Award to World Technology Corporation and its CEO, Mr. Peter Tierney. World Technology Corporation focuses on exporting U.S.-made high-tech products. So the company acts as an outsourced international department for mid-sized manufacturers, and more specifically, they sell renewable energy equipment. The company is exported to 45 markets, and congratulations to Peter Tierney and to World Technology Corporation, for their success and for this award.
Thanks so much, everyone, for being here and supporting World Trade Week. I know we got a great program here and a lot of great export experts here. We have the Honorable Undersecretary of International Trade, Gilbert Kaplan. I know we have Carmela Mammoth and young Ryan from the U.S. Commercial Service, and the support of Baruch College. My name is Pete Tierney. I'm the founder and CEO of World Technology Corporation. World Tech is a master wholesaler and exporter of renewable energy equipment. And I was inspired to start my company by an Israeli economist at the University of Michigan. We learned about the Soga Shosha, the Japanese trading companies at the time, which the top 8 at the time did about $1 trillion worth of exports. And I realized, like, why doesn't the U.S. have large trading companies that just promote U.S. products internationally? So I started World Technology, and they say that one of the most important ingredients of an entrepreneur is naivety. So I really didn't know what I was doing at the time. Did it for a couple of years, and then I went and took a position with Mitsui, the Japanese trading company based here in New York. Mitsui was started in 1642 by a defeated samurai. So they've been doing this almost 350 years. And now they do about $180 billion a year in sales, and they don't make any products. All they do is move other companies' products. Now, we all know we have some big companies here in the U.S. that export a lot. Boeing, for example, but that's not a good example right now. But here's a statistic that really keeps me up at night. Of all the amazing small businesses, companies like Lee Spring that we have here in the U.S., only 1% of these companies export. Only 1% of small manufacturers export in the U.S., which I think is really a national tragedy. I mean, it's just, as one of my colleagues said to me, this is not rocket surgery. I mean, if you're a manufacturer in Long Island or New Jersey and you can sell to Alabama or Colorado, you can sell to El Salvador or Indonesia. And you just have to talk slower like you do in Alabama. And have a great freight forwarder. I mean, you're delivering it by truck here, you deliver it by boat. It's not really much of a difference. And I know you've heard of the new Green Deal. I mean, we're actually living it right now. We're exporting U.S.-made renewable energy products, helping reduce climate change, and supporting high-paying U.S. manufacturing jobs. Manufacturers pay their people more. They're more likely to weather recession. The solution is really before our eyes. I mean, and don't worry about politics or macroeconomic. Just get out there in the market. I mean, Hillary was against NAFTA, Bernie's against NAFTA, Trump's against NAFTA, yet my company's exporting products made in Texas to customers in Mexico, duty-free under NAFTA. Now, if they buy a Chinese product, they pay a 15% duty. But if they buy American, it's 0%. So it definitely can be done. And here's a secret. If you get paid from overseas, I don't know why everyone's so afraid. If you get paid in drachma or lira or euro, by the time it hits your account, it's US dollars. So I've exported US-made IT products, integrated chips, transformers, lawnmowers made in Ohio, solar equipment, wood chippers made in Fargo, North Dakota. I don't know if you saw the movie. There was one in the movie. That was our brand. Even US-made mouse traps. So years ago, I used to export mouse traps made in Amish country in Lititz, Pennsylvania. And I exported them to Beijing to be used in Mao Zedong's mausoleum. And you asked, why would the Chinese use US-made mouse traps? And I asked them, and they said that the US mouse traps catch the mouse. Thanks so much today. Appreciate it.
I'm sure you have great stories to tell us. We'd like to hear more of those. And now to present our Global Logistics Award, please welcome back to the podium Bob Lemur from Port Authority. Bob?
It is our pleasure to award the Global Logistics Award to the Council of Supply Chain Management. Real briefly about the supply chain management program in itself, it is exactly what you hear in the title. It are professional logistics people from all different industries. They put their heads together, they define, they explore, they talk about best business practices on what works in their respective industries, how they establish what works, what doesn't work in terms of key performance indicators, and they are really on the forefront of driving strategy and innovation in their respective organizations. So on behalf of World Trade Week Council, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, certainly we welcome and applaud this year's recipient, the Council of Supply Chain Management, and receiving the award, Susan Richter.
Thank you so much.
Well done. You should probably grab your plaque first.
Sure.
Let's do that again.
One more for him over there.
Oh, okay, okay.
I'll
I'm going to place this here for you.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and thank you for, on behalf of the Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals, very long name, better known as CSCMP, our New York and New Jersey chapter, and I have two of the board members here. I'd like to just recognize Adam. I want to stand up and say hello, and Eric, and we do promote trade throughout the region. We have monthly or every other monthly meetings, so if you'd like more information, you can talk to any one of us on the board. We do specialize in global supply chain management, and that is very complicated today, from the typical imports that you just spoke about, whether or not they're mousetraps or high-end technology. We also are the #1 leading organization for connecting, developing, and educating our members. In fact, more than 70% of our membership is actually at the executive level, key decision makers. So we do have upcoming tours. In fact, this Wednesday there is a port tour scheduled as part of this week's events, and we'll be rounding out with Topgolf. Maybe some of you made our Amazon tour earlier this year, and we'll continue to have updates on international global trade changes, including tariff shifts and the new USMCA, which is hopefully going to be ratified first quarter next year. So I hope that's a good move for your company. It's certainly a good move for the country. So thank you again on behalf of our association. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations, Susan. We actually have 2 Global Trade Awards. One is for an organization, and one is for a company. Joseph Schoonmaker, who is the head of the New York District Export Council, will present both of those. Joe.
Thank you, Nancy. Stepping up on the stage is difficult for me these days. I had 2 knees replaced recently, so the pain is dissipating and so on. Okay, the Global Trade Award, first to an organization. The New York Economic Development Corporation consists of teams of skilled and dedicated individuals and know-how across many fields, including community, neighborhood development, workforce development, real estate, industry, sector analysis, design, urban planning, marketing and engineering, financial analysis, and I could go on and on. The strategy is shaped by 5 key principles: investing in infrastructure, unlocking human capital, leveraging city assets, very important, making it easier for businesses to start and grow, cultivating a global capital of innovation. New York Economic Development Corporation is dedicated to the creation of dynamic, equitable, and sustainable urban economy. Extremely important. Mark Thomas, would you step up and receive your award? Thank you.
Great, good morning. I know it's been a long breakfast, so I'll be brief. We have the greatest job on earth. We get to sell New York City, and we get to work with entrepreneurs and creators and businesses and make sure they know if they're based in New York. We want them to stay here, we want them to grow, and we want them to export their work outside of the U.S. Over the last few years, we've played an important role really as a hub of innovation in the emerging sectors in the country, where people have invited us to really share the greatness that's happening in New York. And that work has really allowed us to be diplomatic and represent the best of the U.S. and the best of what's happening in all the different sectors that you see really driving tech across the country. And so this is like a reflection of that great work. I like to acknowledge a lot of our partners who are here as well. So if you all will please stand. Who we have here are different organizations who help us administer a lot of our work. Company, CivLab, we have SOSA, Tech NYC, who all represent the best of organizations who are supporting tech in New York City. So thank you for all the work you do. And then my colleague, Justin Kramer, who leads our international work as well. So thank you.
The Global Trade Award to the company this year goes to Spectraline, founded 64 years ago. Spectraline. Oh, Spectraline is your?
Spectronics Corporation is the company. Spectraline is the trade name.
Ah, okay. I'm learning something. Thank you. Founded 64 years ago, Spectronics has been developing and manufacturing high-quality ultraviolet lamps and fluorescent leak detection dyes under the Spectraline brand name for some of the largest companies in the world. Some of the more notable projects for Spectraline Technologies has been the U.S. Space Shuttle and groundbreaking you gave me a difficult name to pronounce. Electrophoresis research as part of the Human Genome Project. I find the Human Genome Project to be very interesting. Spectraline exports to 95 different countries, and of course you can see more about them in our little brochure here. I'd like to invite up John Cooper to accept the award.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I have to disagree a little bit with the previous speaker. He said he had the best job in the world. I actually have the best job in the world because I get to run Spectronics Corporation, which is a family-owned business on Long Island, started by my late father back in 1955, and now the third generation is working there. I have 5 kids, and 3 of my kids are working at Spectronics, and so I can start thinking about retirement, so life is good. So Spectronics is the largest manufacturer in the world of ultraviolet lighting equipment and fluorescent dyes. We make a lot of really interesting products. If you ever went into a nightclub or a restaurant and they checked your $20 bill under a black light to see if it was real, we invented that technology. If you drive a car, in your air conditioning system, there's a patented product that we manufacture that finds refrigerant leaks before they can escape into the atmosphere and harm the ozone layer. If you have an iPhone, the memory chip on every iPhone in the world that's produced the memory is raised during the production process using shortwave UV technology that we manufacture. And if you ever watch CSI crime shows on TV, when they check a crime scene, they use our light sources. Coolest thing, though, anyone here used to be a fan of the X-Files? Raise your hand. I was, by the way, and I give tours to college students all the time. When I ask them that, they have no idea what I'm talking about, which is depressing. Reminds me how old I am. But in any case, I was watching the X-Files, and I yelled out to my kids in the other room, "Kids, Agent Mulder is examining the remains of an alien being with our Q22 UV magnifier lamp." So that was the high point of my career. But anyway, just very briefly, exports are the key to the growth of my company. We currently sell to nearly 100 countries around the world. About 45% of our sales are exports. And it's a lot of challenges today, exporting, as everyone is aware, but organizations, agencies like the U.S. Commercial Service have been extremely helpful to us in growing the sales of our products. If it were not for our growth in exports, Spectronics would be stagnating right now. Anyway, it's a great pleasure for me to be here, great honor for me on behalf of my company to accept this award. And I wanted to thank everyone very much.
We have amazing, amazing entrepreneurs in this city who build businesses, create jobs, pay back to the community, and we are very, very lucky to have organizations such as our awardees and those who are also in the room to help to support the growth and to make those entrepreneurs' dreams come true. So, without further ado, we'd like to introduce our Global Achievement Award, which also is going to a corporation that helps to support entrepreneurship and major international growth. The presenter is Jonathan Haneke. Jonathan is, responsible for USCIB's strategic communications, including media relations, publications, online content, and high-level public events. He also manages the work of USCIB's Marketing and Advertising Committee. Jonathan serves on the steering committee for World Trade Week 2019. Jonathan, welcome.
Thank you, Nancy. Hello, everybody. And Nancy, thank you for everything you've done for this event over the years. It's really terrific. I get to present the Global Achievement Award in the Cohn Reznick. This is the 10th year that Cohn Reznick has served as a sponsor of World Trade Week NYC, and it's the 9th that our friend Chuck Lemma has served as co-chaired the event. So kudos to Cohn Reznick. Thanks for everything you do. Even more importantly, and this is interesting because someone else mentioned a 100th anniversary. This year is Cohn Reznick's 100th anniversary, founded in Newark, New Jersey in 1919. Something was happening with those returning World War I vets. They had just sort of exposed the country to the rest of the world. It was our first step out of the international stage, and they came back and started these powerhouse organizations that have kept New York as the center of world commerce. Cohn Reznick is a really important player in global accounting and international business, both in New York and around the world. It has 3,000 employees, including 300 partners, spread out among 20 offices, including 5 overseas offices. Chuck Lemma is Cohn Reznick's lead liaison to Nexia International, which counts about 200 firms as its members, and together they make up the number 9 global accounting firm worldwide. I wanted to just relate a story that a friend of mine, I live in New Jersey, and a friend of mine in Jersey had worked for Chuck and for Cohn Reznick for many years, and she told me the following story. She said, after Hurricane Sandy, there were several of us Cohn Reznick employees who lived in New Jersey but were having trouble getting into the city easily, so we were working out of the firm's Roseland, New Jersey office. We were sitting in a big conference room, and I'm sure we all have Sandy stories like that. Chuck stopped by one day, and my friend thanked him for accommodating what she called all of us New York office refugees. He stopped and he replied, "You're not refugees, you're ambassadors." And she thought, what a marketing genius. There's no better, ladies and gentlemen, there's no better ambassador for New York than Cohn Reznick, and there is no better ambassador for the firm and for World Trade Week than Chuck Lemma. So let's all give him a big round of applause, and the firm a big round of applause for Global Achievement. Let me give you the right award.
Great. Let me do it with my partners.
You want to bring them up?
Oh, great. Thank you. Wow, it's really nice to be on this side of the receiving the award. You know, I have all these prepared remarks, but as I sat here and listened to the entrepreneurs talk about their firms, I really felt the prepared speech isn't appropriate. I mean, this is really, for us, it's a very emotional time. I've got a few of my partners who are instrumental in having to transform a firm founded some 100 years ago. I've been with the firm, I'll be 42 years. I had hair back then and a lot of aspirations, but I've gotten to work with some really talented professionals who care about entrepreneurs, who are really smart in how they think and how they help them meet the challenges both domestically and around the world. You know, our tax people love to quote code, but they really have insight that allows businesses to sleep at night. You know, compliance and integrity are major components of doing business around the world, and when we represent the United States, we want to make sure that we handle companies that do that and help them do that correctly. From the audit standpoint, we represent firms that operate around the globe. We work with Nexia International and many of our partner firms. We have our head of assurance here today, and there we're opining on financial statements so that the banks, lending sources, private equity funds can rely and invest to help entrepreneurs grow to the next level. Today, as I told you before, disruption, a major buzzword, but really what it is, it's a major way of thinking. And we have our advisory group that sits with entrepreneurs and large businesses and has to retool and rethink the way we do business. Digital transformation, as I mentioned before, is just at the cusp. You saw as we were doing the fourth round of the Industrial Revolution, it's the tip of the iceberg. What you think you can imagine, it used to happen 10, 15 years from now. Today it's happening in 5 years. The speed in which change is occurring is amazing. So working with the kind of professionals that we have at the firm really lifts me. You know, I've had the great opportunity, as you heard, I'm head of practice development. I've had many different hats in the firm. The one I enjoy the most is the one working internationally, representing our firm throughout the world. Many of you have been to other breakfasts and have heard I've had the ability to travel to almost 50 countries and to really hear and understand. What's amazing is we may have political differences, but when it comes to business, it's amazing when you look someone in the eye, we have the same objectives. We want to take care of our families. We want to make sure that wherever we're living is comfortable and we can live in harmony. So with that, I want to accept the award. I want to acknowledge Jim Wall, who's here, head of our International Tax Department, David Rubin, who's here as head of advisory in our governance practice and business advisory, Robert Hilbert, who heads up our global assurance practice, Sharia Sahagi, who heads up our cyber technology practice, and a bunch of others who are here from our firm. And I want to thank them for being here, and we'll take a picture together once the program is over. Thank you very much for acknowledging us, and we look forward to many more years together.
Congratulations, Chuck, and again, thank you so much for helping to support World Trade Week all these many years. We really appreciate it. I'd like to welcome back to the stage Joe Schoonmaker, who will introduce our next distinguished presenter. Joe.
It's my pleasure to introduce the Undersecretary of Commerce. Gilbert B. Kaplan was confirmed by the U.S. Senate on March 13th in 2018, assumed his position as Undersecretary of Commerce for International Trade in the United States Department of Commerce on March 20th of 2018. In his role, he leads a workforce of 2,100 personnel within the International Trade Administration and oversees 3 major business units at the ITA: global markets and domestic and foreign commercial service, industry and analysis, and enforcement and compliance. Prior to assuming his position, Mr. Kaplan was a partner at King Spalding. He's also a founder of the Conference on the Renaissance of American Manufacturing and co-founder of the Manufacturing Policy Initiative at Indiana University School of Public and Environmental Affairs, the first and only university program in the country focusing on what public policy should be taken to revitalize U.S. manufacturing. I'm thinking of Mr. Mangles here at the moment. You two have something in common here. From 1983 to 1988, Mr. Kaplan had senior positions in the U.S. government, serving as the Acting Assistant Secretary and Deputy Assistant Secretary for Import Administration at the U.S. Department of Commerce. Mr. Kaplan is a graduate of Harvard Law School, cum laude, and Harvard College, magna cum laude, and the Phillips Exeter Academy with honors. He and his wife Betty and 2 children, Catherine, and Nicholas. Undersecretary, please.
Thank you, Joe, for the warm welcome. And thank you to the New York District Export Council and for all of you for the great work you do to stimulate international trade. I really enjoyed the presentations I saw so far, particularly the one on advanced manufacturing, which was a great history of how we've gotten to where we are today in manufacturing. As you heard from my biography, I've spent a lot of my life trying to revive or at least enhance United States manufacturing. Let me just say a few words about what we do at the United States Department of Commerce, and I'd like to focus in particular on a very big event that is coming up for us on inward foreign investment. Inbound foreign direct investment is a critical part of our country's economic success, and we're looking forward to a very large conference called Select USA, which will be coming up in June, where we have representatives of over 50 countries coming to look at what kind of investment they can make into the United States. U.S. affiliates of majority foreign-owned firms support nearly 500,000 jobs in New York State alone, with the software and IT services, business services, textiles, financial services, and consumer products sector accounting for a large chunk of these positions. At the Department of Commerce, we have a specialized program to attract FDI. Select USA is dedicated to facilitating and promoting high-impact business investment directly into communities across the United States. Select USA has been a resounding success, assisting thousands of clients, including economic development organizations from almost all the states, domestic firms, and international companies, while the program has facilitated over $47.8 billion in investment and creating or retaining tens of thousands of U.S. jobs. Due to Select USA's success and an urgent need to foster and protect American manufacturing, we have a new focus within our Select USA office to help American companies invest in American factories, American jobs, and American communities. We call this effort Reselect USA. Reselect USA is a concerted push to further mobilize Department of Commerce and federal government resources to support U.S. companies on their path to growth domestically. In fact, Reselect USA was actually an idea born out of a trip here to New York State, to my hometown of Endicott, New York. After several months of engaging with American companies in my role as undersecretary, it was a visit back to that area, Syracuse, Binghamton, Endicott, Cortland, that whole area, where I was reminded of the lost jobs, the lost opportunities as manufacturing, one of the primary engines of the American economy, suffered throughout the state. I know we had to do more, that American workers deserved better. Having such close personal ties to this misfortune generated a call to action. Right here, the idea behind Reselect USA was born. As I said, the Select USA Summit attracts serious investors and economic development leaders from across the globe. Past Investment Summit participants have announced $98 billion in greenfield FDI in the United States, supporting more than 150,000 U.S. jobs. Last year's summit was particularly successful, attracting more than 3,000 attendees and 1,000 plus attendees from the international business community. The 2019 Investment Summit will be June 10 through 12, 2019 at the Washington Hilton near DuPont Circle. Registration for the 2019 Investment Summit is open at selectusaSummit.com, and we encourage you to join us. I'll just say a word about advanced manufacturing, because that's something we're thinking about all the time at the Department of Commerce. We see the transition to advanced manufacturing as an incredible opportunity for U.S. business. Obviously, we have lost some manufacturing jobs in this country, millions in fact. We've lost some industries in this country, though almost none entirely. And what we see in advanced manufacturing is a change where the technological sophistication of the United States can put us back into a position where we can do much more in the manufacturing sector. We see incredible opportunities for investment for our financial industries. One thing you need in advanced manufacturing is a sophisticated investment strategy, and we certainly have the ability to do that in New York with the tremendous financial services industry, but really with our financing all across this country. You also need an incredible workforce to run these new advanced manufacturing facilities. We are trying to build that up in the current administration. Secretary Ross, my boss, is on the board of the Workforce and Apprenticeship Program that was set up out of the White House to make sure we have the right employees available when these jobs open. The number one thing I hear from U.S. CEOs is they can't get the people to do the manufacturing jobs. I don't know if you have that problem in New York, but we certainly see it all across the country, and I'd be interested in hearing your views on that. There's also a problem with standards as it relates to exporting. There's no clear, obviously, international standards in many of these new industries, or in many of the old industries, actually, and we are working very hard at the Department of Commerce to establish international standards that benefit the United States and are also fair to everybody else. What we're not trying to do is what some other countries are trying to do, which is have standards which really can only be met within their own countries by their companies. That's a real problem in advanced manufacturing exports. People talked about disruption. I think there is disruption occurring right now in advanced manufacturing, and the question is, will the United States be at the head of the curve? And we're trying everything we can at the U.S. Department of Commerce and throughout the administration to make sure we are. Again, I think this is a real opportunity. You look at some industries, Endicott was the home of what some of you will remember was Endicott Johnson Shoes, which was the largest shoe manufacturer in the world. It doesn't exist. And I don't know if we'll ever reclaim the shoe industry to any great extent, but we can reclaim nanotechnology. We can reclaim sophisticated electronic manufacturing. We can reclaim, I think, some kinds of apparel that have left, because all of these fields will involve advanced manufacturing. At the Department of Commerce, we have the Manufacturing USA program with 14 institutes focusing on particular emerging or advanced technologies, including robotics, additive manufacturing, lightweighting, and advanced fabrics. And all of these are potential big opportunities for the United States. There will be enormous markets for these products all over the world. I hope to be able to talk with some of you about these opportunities, and I hope we can be successful in moving this agenda forward. Before I proceed to our awards presentation, I would like to thank and acknowledge Carmela Mammoth, who is here, if you'd like to stand up. I've already heard from a number of people how great our commercial service has been. We have an incredible group of people all over the world, over 1,000 people, many in the United States, many in just about every country you can think of. I recently traveled through Africa and worked with our commercial service people in Ethiopia, Kenya, Cote d'Ivoire, and Ghana. And it's just amazing what the depth of their knowledge is, the depth of their knowledge about local import requirements, the depth of their knowledge about the people and the governments of each of these countries. So I hope you'll take advantage of that. And Carmela can get you in touch with people probably today, anywhere in the world, basically, who can help you. So have a good day if they all come to ask you to do that. I'd also like to introduce Anastasia Zenius. Is she here? I've worked with Anastasia for my whole year. I've basically been in office a little over a year. I was going to say for many years, it feels like that. But she has done an incredible job and is helping me work on how we can rebuild or revive or enhance the apparel industry in the United States. And we're going to be meeting with a lot of apparel manufacturers from New York in the Garment District this afternoon. And Ryan Barnes, see here? Ryan is helping companies in Manhattan and all around New York with encouraging exports. And we have many other foreign commercial service people here. So as I said, I hope you'll talk to them about any way we can help you. With that, I'd like to go for the main reason I am here. And it is my privilege to recognize two successful local exporters, Mi-Jong Lee and Voxy, and present them with Department of Commerce Export Achievement Certificates. The Export Achievement Certificate recognizes small and medium-sized entrepreneurs that have successfully entered the international marketplace for the first time, or that have successfully entered a new market, as both of today's recipients have accomplished. ML and Mi-Jong Lee are two designer apparel brands owned by Korean-American entrepreneur Mi-Jong Lee. Both are manufactured in New York City and sold in the owner's own boutiques in Manhattan and across the United States. I haven't had a chance to visit that boutique, but maybe today I will. So I'm looking forward to seeing it. We have been a partner to Ms. Lee. In fact, the U.S. Commercial Service has been working with the company since it started exporting. Ms. Lee first contacted the Commercial Service to clarify shipping, tax and duty, and compliance issues to fulfill the company's first export order to China. The company has been able to grow its Made in New York apparel business and has now expanded to several markets in Asia, Europe, Canada, and the Middle East. I would now like to welcome Ms. Lee to the stage to receive her certificate. I'm sorry. You want to join us? Okay. Take another set of pictures. Great.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Undersecretary Kaplan. Thank you, Carmela, and thank you, Anastasia. You've been great friends since I started this journey. I feel like a small fish that just came into an ocean with everybody. I own a very small company, always New York City based. And I loved your speech about the revolutions. I wasn't present in the first two revolutions, but on the third one, it's definitely felt in my industry. And as Secretary Kaplan has said, we've lost tremendous manufacturing. And I'm stubborn. And I make every piece in New York and every piece in my atelier. I start the design process. Each of my employees, they're 24, and they've been with me, most of them over 20 years. And this is important because you cannot find these artisanal working people anymore in New York. So when the third revolution came, and with the Facebook and with the social media and the fast fashion, I had to come up with my answer to that disruptive process. And my answer was that I was going to do slow fashion. So I had the people, and hopefully I have the talent. So every season, that's where the Mijong Lee collection started. Every season, I'm inspired by an artist, and I create my original prints. Now, that's something that online cannot do, and that's something that fast fashion cannot copy. And I love it anyway. With that, each piece is developed. Each garment is hand-cut by one cutter, and each garment is sewn by one sewer. So we're backing off of the automation, and each team has an ownership of their garment. And this is what I'm presenting to not just domestically, but to the world, and it seems to be taking traction. So it is, and this recognition gives me such support and gives me, okay, atta girl, I'll keep going. So I thank you very, very much.
For our next award, I'd like to recognize Voxy. Voxy provides personalized English language instruction to corporations, educational institutions, and governments across the globe. Launched in 2010, it has been incredibly successful, helping teach millions of learners and used by hundreds of institutions in over 50 different countries. The commercial service initially recruited Voxy to attend the Startup Global event at eBay, which encouraged small businesses to grow international sales and exports. Voxy then utilized our services to look into several markets, including Germany, Italy, Hungary, Poland, Nigeria, and Morocco. In France, Voxy was able to identify and partner with a new distributor, which is expected to return significant recurring new export sales per annum. I would like to ask Mr. Daniel Lichi, VP of Voxy, to come to the stage to receive Voxy's award. Oh, come on.
You do the first one.
Sorry. Great. Thank you.
All right. Didn't come as prepared as everyone else, but I think I'm the last one, so I'm going to keep it very brief. So thank you very much, Mr. Kaplan and Peter and the commercial service, which have been instrumental to our growth. Voxy is a very, very small company, or it has been growing steadily, but as you can imagine, we teach English, and people here already speak English, so we needed to sell only internationally. And we needed to maximize our investment, and the commercial service has been really, really good for finding key distributors in the main countries. We now work with companies in the size of Walmart, Delta, AT&T in helping their offices worldwide communicate better with their U.S. offices, and obviously to increase commercial and trade internationally. So again, thank you very much, and we look forward to continuing helping U.S. companies communicate with other companies and exporting in the future. Thank you.
Well, thank you all very much, and I hope we'll have the opportunity to work with many of the companies and institutions and organizations in the room. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Undersecretary, and thank you so much for joining us today and coming up from Washington. We hope you enjoy the rest of your day meeting more of our small businesses and manufacturers here in the city. I'd next like to introduce Carmela Mammoth, who is the director of the U.S. Export Assistance Center in New York, to present the World Trade Week New York City Service Award. Carmela.
Thank you, Nancy, and thanks for all your hard work on the steering committee. But it's so wonderful to be here, see so many familiar faces and friends and colleagues and partners, and all in one room. So this is really a wonderful event, and thank you all for joining the World Trade Week Steering Committee. And also, it's a great honor to have Undersecretary Kaplan join us here in New York City today. We had a little bit of a rainy day, but we still have a full room. So what I'm going to be presenting is a very special award to a longtime member of the World Trade Week New York City Steering Committee. I'll be presenting the World Trade Week New York City Service Award to Charles Dugan. But before I do that, I'd like to just tell something a little bit about Charles. Well, for one thing, he's the Vice President of Global Finance for TD Bank. He's also a longtime District Export Council member for over 10 years now. And if for those of you who are not aware what the District Export Council is, the District Export Council members volunteer their time to support the U.S. Department of Commerce in counseling our clients, small to medium-sized companies, to export. And they all are specialized in a particular area. Charles's expertise is trade finance, so he's helped us counsel hundreds of companies over the years who are exporting for the first time or starting to expand to new markets. He's helped us counsel on setting up their international financial transactions. So also, why I'm standing up here today is we want to recognize Charles for 8 years of service as the treasurer for on the World Trade Week Steering Committee. So I'd like to invite Charles up here right now to present the award. Thank you so much, Charles, for your service. Charlie. Okay, so this seems to be the side for the photos. All right, should we take off our name tags? Let's take off our name tag.
Thank you.
Oh, would you like to say a word?
Just thank you. And contrary to what someone at my table said, there will not be 8 more years.
Charles, and for our final awards today, I'd like to invite up a fellow steering committee member, Peter Bengstrom from the New York Public Library. Don't sit down, come back around. Come on. No, don't sit down. Peter's going to present our World Trade Week NYC Next Generation Scholarships. Peter.
So yeah, last of all, we have the Next Generation Scholarship, which is in the amount of $1,000, which is awarded to one Baruch College undergraduate and to one student from the Fashion Institute of Technology who are currently majoring in international business, or I guess in the case of FIT, the International Trade and Marketing degree, I believe it's called. The World Trade Week NYC created this scholarship in 2014 to encourage the study of international business and to encourage future business leaders in New York. This year we received 5 applications from FIT and 5 from Baruch, and while we would love to award everybody a scholarship, we had to choose one from each school. So with that, I would like to welcome up to the stage Daniela Radhe Kasoon from Baruch College and Raquel Paiva from the Fashion Institute of Technology. So how are we doing this? Oh, and then here you're... The important thing is the checks. So, okay. So.
They get the checks, huh?
I got the
good.
checks. Oh, they got the checks. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you, committee, for recognizing that the future is only as strong as the people that will live in it, and that's not us. I want to invite Wanda Sample up to give some closing remarks. I want to thank you all for participating in this wonderful event. I want to remind you how important you are. New York started as a city about trade. Trade is still important. The port is still important. You are important. Wanda.
Good morning. On behalf of the World Trade Week Steering Committee, we'd like to thank our hosts. We'd like to thank all of our sponsors. Without them, this could not happen. We also like to thank our presenters and our award recipients. But most of all, we'd like to thank you for taking time out of your day to come join us and to fill this room. This is awesome. We're so glad to see that everybody's here. On behalf of World Trade Steering Committee, to show our thanks, we have some surveys on the table that we would appreciate you taking a few minutes to complete. You can leave them on the table. And under every, or at every table, underneath a chair, there is a little sticker. And whoever has that sticker underneath their chair gets to take these beautiful plants home that is sitting on your table. Again, thank you so much for attending the 14th breakfast of World Trade Week. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.